The tale opens on Yautja Prime, a ruthless world ruled by the mighty Yautja, hunters feared by all and hunted by none. High in orbit, a spacecraft glides over the planet's surface before abruptly halting its descent. Below, a warrior named Quay trudges through the hostile wilderness in search of his lost brother, Dek. He eventually locates Dek hidden beneath a shimmering cloak. As Quay approaches, Dek springs an ambush, and the brothers clash in a fierce, close-quarters battle. Determined to prove his strength, Dek launches strike after strike, but Quay easily counters his attacks, disarming him and sending him tumbling into a deep trench, ending the duel. Climbing back up, Dek insists he's ready to claim his place as a true Yautja warrior. But Quay, unimpressed, tells him he still lacks control and walks away. Later aboard their ship, Dek discovers a small model vessel left by his brother, a symbolic gesture representing his own craft. Quay explains that to earn a clan's respect, a Yautja must claim a worthy trophy in the hunt, or die trying. As Dek searches for his destined prey, Quay detects a world named Jenna, a deadly planet known as the Death World, home to the unkillable beast called Kaliska. Dek vows to slay Kaliska to prove himself to their father, who considers him a disappointment. Quay warns that no Yautja has ever survived that hunt, but Dek refuses to yield. Before their journey can begin, their father's ship descends from the heavens. He confronts Quay, demanding to know why Dek still breathes. Calling Dek a stain on their bloodline, he orders Quay to execute him. Using advanced weaponry, the father traps Dek within a containment field. But Quay refuses to obey. Instead, he destroys the device, locks Dek inside a ship, and sends him away to safety. Then, Quay turns his blade against his own father. But the elder Yautja wields mystic powers, vanishing from sight and overpowering Quay in a brutal battle. From within the craft, Dek watches helplessly as his father kills Quay. Yet the father soon collapses, mortally wounded. With his dying strength, Quay remotely activates the ship, launching Dek toward Jenna. As the ship rises, Dek witnesses his brother's death and hears his final words echo in his mind, "Bring it home." During the voyage, meteoric debris collides with the vessel, jolting Dek awake from cryosleep. The ship breaches Jenna's turbulent atmosphere and is immediately attacked by a monstrous creature, crashing violently into the dense jungle below. Furious and grieving, Dek swears to honor Quay's memory by completing the hunt. Checking his equipment, he soon realizes the forest itself is alive. The trees begin to twist and move, roots whipping toward him. Dek hacks through them and escapes deeper into the wild. Ahead stretches the lethal expanse of Jenna, each step a test of survival. After tending to his injuries with broad leaves, Dek presses on and discovers carcasses scattered across the ground. Even the plants here thirst for blood. Not long after, he spots a young woman tangled in vines, Thaya. A rock hurtles from the shadows, stirring the deadly flora into frenzy. Thaya begs for help, claiming she can be useful. But Dek snarls that a Yautja hunts alone before charging through the chaos. A venomous plant pierces him, leaving him dazed. As he collapses, Thaya cries out once more. Dek tosses a small device toward her before blacking out. When a creature lunges to devour him, Thaya grabs a weapon and slays it, saving his life before he loses consciousness. When Dek awakens, he questions her identity. Thaya explains that she's part of Wayland Yutani's survival research team, engineered to endure harsh environments. Humans, she says, could never survive Jenna's wrath. She tells Dek that many Yautja have fallen to Kaliska, and she's even seen the beast herself. She offers to guide him to its lair if he allows her to accompany him. Dek realizes his navigation system is destroyed. With no choice, he reluctantly agrees to let Thaya lead the way. As they trek through the perilous jungle, Thaya talks incessantly, while Dek remains stone-silent. Crossing a narrow stream, she mentions she's spent years studying predatory creatures and knows how they think. To avoid losing her, Dek ties a rope between them. When a storm brews, they take shelter and build a camp. Dek asks how long she's been trapped here. Thaya replies that it's been 2 years since her team set up base, and she still hopes her friend Tessa will come back. She recalls a past expedition when Kaliska's sudden attack separated them. Despite everything, she believes Tessa survived. Elsewhere, Tessa indeed lives but returns injured to her outpost. Her superiors reassign her to capture Specimen X-0522 and secure the company's biological weapons, warning her of Yautja presence nearby. Upon waking, Tessa learns Thaya is traveling with one of them. Meanwhile, back on Jenna, Dek attempts to hunt for food but slices his hand on razor-sharp grass. Suddenly, a small alien creature darts between the beasts. Dek gives chase, leaping across branches but nearly impales himself on the lethal grass below. When he catches the creature, they scuffle until it signals a greater threat. A gigantic predator erupts from the underbrush. Dek hurls his weapon, cleaving it cleanly in two. Moments later, a flying monobug swoops in, trapping both Dek and the tiny alien. The creature helps Dek break free but gets caught again. Dek dives after it, battling the bug amid the treetops until he slays it in a vicious struggle. Elsewhere, Tessa's squad combs the wilderness for signs of Thaya, following Yautja blood trails and torching the predatory routes they encounter. That night, Dek, Thaya, and the small creatures sit around a crackling fire. Thaya jokes that they make quite a team. Dek smirks, admitting his favorite moment was nearly chopping the creature's head off earlier. Softening, Dek shares some food with the creature, thanking it for saving him. He tells Thaya about his brother, the one their father murdered for being too weak. Dek confides that he came to Jenna to hunt Kaliska and reclaim his honor. When he asks Thaya why she's here, she quietly replies that she's searching for Tessa. Meanwhile, Tessa discovers Dek's wrecked ship and examines the weapons and tools left behind. The next day, Dek readies to move on, but Thaya insists they can't abandon the small creature. She's named it Bud. Dek growls that a Yautja always hunts alone but still takes Thaya with him, leaving Bud behind. As they near a waterfall, Dek spots one of Kaliska's fangs. Uneasy, Thaya asks why his father killed his brother. Dek reveals that his brother died protecting him because he was branded the clan's weakness, and now he hunts to prove he never was. Thaya shares a story about wolves on Earth, explaining that a true alpha safeguards the pack instead of eliminating the weak. Dek disagrees, saying he intends to become the alpha known for the greatest number of kills. They trek through Jenna's unforgiving landscape until reaching Kaliska's den, where countless corpses are scattered across the area. Thaya concludes that Kaliska was responsible for destroying their operation and soon locates her detached mechanical legs. After reattaching them, she expresses gratitude to Dek for his assistance. Dek proclaims that this will be the day he earns the title of Yautja by capturing Kaliska. Thaya cautions him to withdraw, revealing that she has called her crew and they are on their way. She admits their actual mission was to capture Kaliska alive. Dek, realizing they plan to take his target, becomes furious. He demands to know where Kaliska is and vows to eliminate anyone who stands between them. Not long after, Dek finds a supply of fuel and sets the base ablaze. Inside, Thaya senses Kaliska's presence approaching. A fierce confrontation erupts between Dek and Kaliska. Dek uses his agility to injure the beast, but it regenerates rapidly and overpowers him, crushing Thaya's legs in the process. Despite his wounds, Dek continues to fight as Thaya joins with her weapon. Dek scales Kaliska's tail, leaps onto its head, and slices it off, but the creature regenerates again and retaliates. At that moment, Tessa appears and hurls a device that freezes both Dek and Kaliska, trapping them within her facility. Dek awakens imprisoned by Tessa, realizing she is not Thaya. The real Thaya is under her control. Tessa scans Dek's mind in search of his intentions but uncovers nothing. She informs him that he will now serve their cause, further enraging him. She then revives Thaya, who seems thrilled to see her sister again. Tessa comments that their mother will be pleased they captured both Dek and Kaliska. Dek believes Thaya has betrayed him. When Tessa injects him with chemicals, Thaya protests, arguing that Yautja are not meant for experimentation. Tessa dismisses her concerns and continues tampering with Dek's brain. Thaya shuts down the system, pleading that this is not what they were sent to do. Tessa responds that their mother gave them emotions only to help manipulate and study others. Thaya insists Dek is different, but Tessa claims she only came for Kaliska and won't repeat her earlier mistakes. She orders her men to imprison Thaya. A soldier tells Thaya to open Dek's device, but it explodes, allowing her to escape. She shouts for Dek to flee as he dives into the waters below. Meanwhile, Tessa and Thaya return to their primary facility. Dek reaches his ship, treats his wounds, and rages over his perceived weakness and betrayal. As the ship powers on, he discovers his brother's armor engraved with a wolf emblem. Inspired, he forges new weapons from natural elements. Following the blood trails of Kaliska and Bud, Dek prepares for a new fight. At the base, Thaya remains confined in a containment cell. Dek remotely activates her mechanical legs, drawing the guards' attention. He infiltrates the facility, eliminating soldiers one by one while Bud assists him. At the same time, Tessa readies Kaliska for experimentation, reporting falsely that Dek has been killed. Dek continues his silent assault, taking down everyone in his way. Thaya's reactivated legs free her but trigger an alert. Dek clears the area, and Thaya rejoins the fight with her restored limbs. As Tessa begins her experiment on Kaliska, Dek appears to rescue Thaya. She feels moved that he returned for her. Bud reveals that Kaliska is his mother, and Thaya urges Dek to release her. With only 20 minutes before launch, guards sweep the area for Dek. He ambushes them, defeating the squad using his newly crafted weapons. Tessa arrives piloting a massive combat unit, unleashing heavy fire at Dek. Meanwhile, Thaya accesses the control console using Tessa's biometric data but is interrupted by one of her subordinates. Pretending to be Tessa, she deceives and kills him. Dek hides and watches as Tessa searches for him. He suddenly attacks from above, latching onto the machine. Simultaneously, Kaliska breaks free and lunges at Tessa, damaging the control systems. Tessa throws a freezing bomb at Kaliska, but Dek shields her, and Kaliska smashes the machine, killing Tessa before reuniting with Bud. Dek approaches Kaliska and gently touches her in gratitude for protecting her offspring. As Tessa, mortally wounded, activates one final freeze charge, Kaliska is obliterated. The blast throws everyone back. Bud watches his mother's demise as Tessa aims a laser at Faya. Dek strikes from behind, killing Tessa, and Bud takes revenge by ripping off her head. Dek embraces Bud, and together they depart for Yautja Prime. Upon arrival, Dek tells his father he has returned to reclaim his honor and presents Kaliska's head. His father orders the guards to execute him, but Dek swiftly slaughters them. A final confrontation takes place between Dek and his father. Using invisibility, his father attacks, but Dek stirs up dust from the ship's engines to expose him and lands the fatal blow. As his father dies, he acknowledges Dek as the rightful leader of their clan. Dek replies, "I have my own clan," as Bud consumes his father's remains. Faya and Bud stand by Dek as he takes his father's cloak, now a true Yautja. Suddenly, a ship descends from above, belonging to his mother. The story ends there. Like, subscribe and comment for more movie recaps like this.